Okay, I believe so. Now you should be hearing me. I have no idea since when you could not hear me. I'm really sorry about that. So I will go back to what I was saying very, very rapidly. I promise. I'm sorry, guys. Really, really, really sorry. Um, I wasn't seeing the comments coming into the live until right now. So let's go back and do this again. You were muted. Thank you. That's exactly what I realized. I'm really sorry. Well, it is what it is. I won't comment about myself, guys. Start over. That's exactly what I will do. But at least you had my pretty face on the screen. Hopefully you appreciated that. So I will start over, and we'll probably we'll do it much faster. So first slide was about Biden pardoning his son. So this makes him go into the camp of liars. What he's accusing Trump of doing. No one is above the law except his son. Obviously, like I said before, I can understand that someone who has the power to protect his son is willing to do so. Now, the most concerning part is that Biden is also considering pardoning a lot of other people that have, protect basically his camp from what he tried to do with Trump, weaponizing the Department of Justice. And so he's trying to protect. This is a consider a list that goes from left member of Congress, such as Chuck Schumer. It usually bros at this comment every so often. I think finally. So if Daniel says finally, this might seems that I'm on. Thank you, because I just saw that asking Enric to call me. But if one person can hear me, this means that Cliff. If one person can hear me, this means that the problem is not coming from my side anymore. I saw the issue. I clicked on mute inadvertently myself. So if you cannot hear me, that's probably on your side now. Biden only cares about him. That's true. I think personally, I think he wasn't the most corrupt president in the history of the United States, but that's just me, and I'm trying to refrain myself from commenting about my personal opinions, but sometimes it's hard. I think that the most concerning part is that Biden will potentially try to extend pardon to many people, going from people on the left, on his political side, such as Chuck Schumer, to people working under his administration, such as Fauci, kind of a global cover-up of what happened under the pandemic, the COVID pandemic. And I think that's very concerning. That's overusing presidential powers at this point, and I believe it's wrong. What I was saying about about Trump. Thank you, Cliff. Okay, it seems that we are all good now. I know that Daniel can hear me, Cliff can hear me. I hope, Maddie, you can hear me. So that's cool. Okay, let's go. I need to remove that. So next was Trump. And so you've seen that Trump is thinking about implementing tariff globally on 9 countries, mostly some BRICS countries, because they want to get out of the dollar system, which I think has little chances to work for a simple reason. The first reason why these countries wanted to leave the US systems is because the weaponization of the US dollar. And what Trump is doing is weaponizing again the US dollar against this country. That I don't know. That's my only response. I'll try. So and so yes. So what was I saying is that so yeah, the first reason is that they wanted to leave the U.S. systems is because the weaponization of the U.S. dollar, which means that it is more likely to push them away more than it may take them back into the US dollar systems. You have these guys that we see here, Vladimir Putin, and in Russia is already widely de-dollarized. There are sanctions on them, so the impact will be at most limited. Now you have more greater, let's say, trade partners with China, a little less India, I would say. But again, I mean, they are forming this coalition to escape the weaponization of the dollar. So it's more likely to push them away. Now you have secondary countries such as Brazil, and others, maybe even South Africa, when you have international trade between the US and this country, and it will be a balance between the tariffs and what you can gain and basically what you can lose. So one of Trump's strengths is negotiation, and I believe that is an instrument of negotiation. At this point, we've seen that he used that already with Mexico, where he started threatening Mexico's tariffs if they would not take back some deportations of illegals. Maybe I think the president of Mexico fought for maybe a week or even less than that before saying that she would accept deportations of illegals back into Mexico. Now we have Canada, where you have Trudeau, who is an anti-Trump. So his position is to say no, we will not accept. But again, it will be based on trade balance. Now we've seen that Trudeau is not. How to say that, he's not really careful about the economic situation of Canada and its citizens. Canada has been struggling under Trudeau, despite being one of the richest countries with their natural resources. So I think it probably don't care about it. It would probably be willing to send Canada in the war at this point. So next we have this little side at the bottom with Musk, Gabbard, RFK, and the Bezos. What do I put this? Because I realized that we almost have a democratic government. Trump was a Democrat, Musk was a Democrat, Gabbard was a Democrat, RFK was a Democrat, and I find it very interesting that a lot of people are moving away from the Democratic Party, not because they are going right, but because the Democratic Party is going extreme left. And this is not, Gabbard or even RFK told, many times that this is not the Democratic Party that they joined, actually. And Trump, I know this may shock someone, but a few, but Trump is more centered when compared to what what the Democratic Party has begun. So that I thought that was funny to realize that all these guys were former Democrats, and we would have kind of the democratic government at this point. But what I also find interesting is Bezos, the last couple of days, 2 or 3 days ago maybe, declared in an interview that he would be willing to help Trump for the success of the country, which is interesting from a guy that bought the Washington Post to have an influence and help the Democrats at this point. This means that he probably also believes that the Democratic Party has been going so left that it cannot be saved. And I believe that what is even more important is that Trump and these guys coming from the Democratic Party, and obviously other guys already Republican. To me, it looks like, and Bezos joining. To me, it looks like a government of national union to make the United States work and to make the United States successful. And I think that to me that I think that's a very hopeful situation. I like to see that. I'm obviously leaning on the right side, but I'm not an extremist side on either way. And I think if you gather all the right people that are willing to think and not be too constrained by ideology, which I believe all of them are. I think that's a good point, and that's a good way to make this country successful again. That would have been make a better slogan than make make America successful again. What is it? Maza, maybe. Okay, okay. Let's move on. Otherwise, we'll still be here at noon. So let's move on. Yes, geopolitics. Geopolitics. You've seen that. Well, maybe not, but Russia is making progress on the ground more rapidly than it did over the last months. I already mentioned that, and that's probably the reason why Zelensky is now starting to talk about peace agreement. So, and now he tries to negotiate that with a NATO membership. So ceasefire and peace against NATO membership to protect themselves, because we've seen that the long range missiles that hit Russia. I mean, no new weapon will change the situation on the ground unless it is a nuclear weapon, which would be totally insane. So whatever they will be given won't change the situation on the ground, in my opinion. And now that they realize this and Russia is making progress, they are now ready to talk about a ceasefire and peace, which is, so Zelensky talked about this, the German defense minister talked about this, saying that say similar stuff, such as Ukraine would have to concede some regions of former Ukraine for peace. So I think that's interesting. We might be going towards a resolution in this conflict, hopefully. German defense minister also said that she would be ready to send United Nations soldiers to ensure peace. It doesn't always work anytime. It didn't work in Kosovo. It was not working in Lebanon. So the conflict where we have in Israel at this time, there was a kind of demilitarized zone at the border, northern border of Israel with Lebanon, controlled by some UN peace forces. And well, actually, they were not controlling anything because we've seen that the Hezbollah had some tunnels when they were hiding rockets that they were firing to Israel. So basically, they were not controlling anything. Usually, in my opinion, the UN, blue helmets forces are just useless at this point. So I don't know how it would work. But there are others, other people in Germany saying that, such as Olaf Scholz, German chancellor, saying that we should not play the Russian roulette with the Russian. He's been obviously impressed by the Oreshnik missiles that was sent to on Ukraine as a retaliation from the former long-range missiles that Ukraine had sent. And now, basically, what Scholz says is that he doesn't want to put the Germany's security at risk at this point. So I believe it's an interesting development. Obviously, not everyone is on that side, because you saw the little, paper headline, which says that the NATO chief, so the Secretary General Mark Rutte, said that he wants less talk of peace in Ukraine and more arms. So once the more we go towards a resolution of this conflict, probably the more that people will show their true intentions. Um, yeah, I won't go further than that because we have more to talk about. What else? Georgia, in Eastern Europe. So with this continuation of something that I probably talked about already, you have situations similar to what happened in Ukraine in 2014, with elections that didn't go the right way, I would say, considering Western standards, because this is a pro-Russian government that was elected. The current president is pro-EU, which is normal. I mean, the lady, the current Georgian president, she's actually also French. She was a NATO staffer, and I think she was trained in Colombia with Zbigniew Brzezinski, the guy that wrote the Grand Chessboard that I reference here quite often, and which outline the foreign policy for the United States since basically the late 90s until now. So, similar situation happens with protests that are now getting more violent. The Georgian president said that she would not recognize the elections, and then her term is so is ending pretty soon. She said that she would not leave the presidency. Um, just like basically Zelensky. Zelensky at this point is an illegitimate president just because he just canceled the elections. So that's the state of democracy in Europe for the guys who claim democracy at every sentence. Basically, that's where we are. And so this president, she made a claim to the Supreme Court of Georgia. The Supreme Court denied her claims. So basically now it will be protest against the, let's say, the police forces, but it really looks like a new what they call a new Maidan. What's interesting as well is that it's been discovered since they started making arrestations that 1/3 of people arrested in these protests are foreign people. And most of them are members of NGOs. NGOs are very often a cover-up for covert operations by some three-letters agencies. So it's not surprising to me, to be honest. We have also another similar situation in Romania where they had elections, and guess what? The wrong party came first in Romania. What I mean by the wrong party is a party that is supporting peace talks with Russia, which is not acceptable by the by NATO and Europe at this point. So what they said, basically, they just canceled the presidential election, amid Russian influence fears. So I mean that's the fun part. It's always Russian influence, just like we never influence anyone, obviously, because we are true Democrats, right? So again, it's another extension of the influence war between the West and the East in Europe. I think that's very interesting that people are, when you have in difficult times, people are showing their true colors, actually. And what they call democracy is only democracy as long as you vote as they expect, as they want you to vote. If you don't, that's not democracy anymore. Stop, Joyce. Stop what? You don't want to take me to talk about Romania, but I think that's very interesting because it shows the it shows the status of the world, and it's pretty ugly, in my opinion. So now you see on this map that why Romania is important for NATO and for the West. Such same thing as Greece and Turkey. Basically, they control the access to the Black Sea. It's a great way for them to contain Russia, which again, if I would remind you, it's still the Zbigniew Brzezinski doctrine on about the ways to contain Russia at this time. So it's again is the same. And the other thing that you can mention, I didn't think about that before, but is that this would probably give another link to Serbia, that they are Slavic people. Serbia has very close ties to Russia. In Serbia, by the way, I mean, we're just diverging here, but Serbia has also some internal conflict with Kosovo. You remember that when it was in 1992, maybe, when Clinton decided to bomb Serbia to protect Kosovo. Protecting Kosovo, it was because the US has military bases there. That led to the explosion of Yugoslavia. What was Yugoslavia at this point? But so there are some conflicts there as well. You know that maybe you don't, but there was Moldova, Transnistria are more Russian-leaning as well. And so if you have what seems to be happening now, if Romania would be pro-Russia, would turn pro-Russia, you would have an area from Russia, Romania, Serbia, that would be pro-Russian at this point. And I think that would be really concerning for NATO, because that would be against their doctrine again to contain Russia as much as possible. So if you think that you have a choice in democracy, you should think again. You only have a choice that you're given, which again, I mean, is exactly what's happening in France, by the way, at this time. Because in France, you've seen that the government has been toppled. There's what we call in France censorship motion. So the government has been censored, which means that the first prime minister had to resign. And then this opens a new selection process of a new prime minister. The thing is that Macron, who has been disavowed massively, his party now represents 6 to 7%. He lost the European elections, which led him to dissolve the assembly, to have new election. Then he lost this again. And now, so he put a prime minister that has been censored, another one. So basically he's losing and losing again. And he says, I'm not leaving, despite, all elections, any pure elections and representation of people trying to make him leave. He said he will not leave, which is in what he has the right to do, but it's against the idea of that. And he refuses basically to select a prime minister from the leading party of France, the party that has the most votes in the country, which is usually where the prime minister is selected from. So basically, you have a guy that is losing elections again and again, and he's only choosing prime ministers to run the government in his close neighborhood, I would say political neighborhood. So again, this is totally against democracy, and people are voting until they realize that their vote is useless, my friends. This is how it works. So we'll go faster because it's late already. Oh my god. Syria, I won't talk much about Israel and Lebanon. Israel has resumed bombings in Lebanon. I would say, unfortunately, not much changes. We have renewed activity in Syria with terrorist groups, emanations from former Al Qaeda and Al Nusra. Now they are called the THS or something like this. I don't even know what it means, but basically it's Al Nusra. The idea, these guys are supported by Turkey and also the US. To topple the government of Bashar al-Assad, who is supported by Russia at this point. If you remember when we had the war so the most recent war in Afghanistan, and we had in Syria, that was already an attempt to overthrow Assad from government. It didn't work because the Russian had the control of the airspace, which they still do at this time in Syria. So it's unlikely, I would say, to be successful again. But it just took back some of the old WikiLeaks reports where you have this guy, Jake Sullivan. Jake Sullivan is the guy that is currently serving as the national security advisor for Biden. And you had, this famous exchange between Jake Sullivan and Hillary Clinton, saying that, Syria, AQ, Al Qaeda is on our side. And the US has been financing terrorists to, do the dirty work for them for quite some time. That's how it works. I mean, if you understand the world, you understand that it's a quite ugly place. Now this one is just for fun. You've probably seen that we had a coup attempt in South Korea. So the current president, who has a 25 approval rate, he has some threat of impeachment against him. He decided, okay, let's attempt a coup, pretend that there's a threat from North Korea at this time, and start martial law. I mean, this was probably the fastest failed coup ever, because I believe it lasted only a couple of hours. So they blocked the parliament first, but the parliament managed to open, and the parliament, South Korean parliament, voted 190-0 against the martial law. And so after that, the military, disbanded, suspended the martial law. You had the Minister of Defense resigning. I'm not sure, I didn't see that the president actually resigned, which is kind of Macron, whatever happened, I'm staying. I mean, that was a crazy part. But obviously, this had an impact on markets. Specifically, you've seen Bitcoin had a flash crash. I mean, it was, considering the volatility of Bitcoin, it was not that crazy. But still, I mean, the Bitcoin dumped at this time, but recovered very rapidly because it really didn't last long. It was a joke of a coup, actually. That's interesting. So now let's switch to economy, something maybe a little more serious. I'm starting with this. The guy Thompson, the CEO of United Healthcare, that's been shot. It's interesting because, how to say this? I don't want to say something that could go beyond my mind, but let's say that United Healthcare has the largest claim denial of any insurance company, and that the guy that shot him, he left some markings on the bullets, which said, I believe it was deny, defend, and depose, which is very close to the title of a book that appeared in the late 2000s, 9, 10 maybe, that was already showing the issues with the health insurance industry and about claim denials. That's probably a kind of a deception attempt to divert the attention to somewhere else, because it really looks like this guy was really a professional in the way he acted. So probably not your regular, extremist militant that decided to kill a CEO. It's pretty unlikely. But in real economic use, the ESM manufacturing is still contracting. So I mean, we are in a recession for quite a long time, and again, I've been saying this for quite some time, but now it's getting more and more obvious every day. And once the new administration coming, I believe that it will get even more obvious, because the real numbers will start to show up. But if you look at, the US, the economy, manufacturing is contracting. In the Eurozone, it's contracting. Any number below 50 basically means that it's contracting. The UK is contracting as well. Now, if you look at Russia is expanding. Well, you could say, well, it's a war economy, so that makes sense. But India is expanding. China is slightly above 50 with a lot of noise. So, which means that to me that it's kind of obvious that there is a kind of a shift in terms of growth from the west to the east at this point. We have to see if it's confirmed, if Trump can revert this trend, because obviously this is the US that is that is pulling the rest of the Western world. If the US managed to come back, then Europe will come back and the UK will come back. But I think it was interesting to see, because all these numbers came up recently, and this really shows, readjustment of the balance. Now, in terms of economy as well, you see that jobs are not doing well. People are staying longer into unemployment. And I could give you basically the same figures and the same numbers that I've shown you again and again all this year. But I decided to show you two only, not to stay too long. The top right, I still have issues, with my left and right. Even at my age, it's well, embarrassing. So the blue line is work of foreign-born employment. So they recovered totally from the pandemic, and they are back to their trend. The ones that did not recover are native-born Americans. They didn't even reach where they were before the pandemic. It goes, same thing, similar with the savings, for instance, in the banks, the savings of Americans in the US banks are basically negative. It's flat to zero, when actually the whole number of amount of savings in the US bank is coming from foreigners. So that's really I would say concerning at this point. But the bottom graph is even more important, which shows the growth of government employment. Basically, the bottom was basically when Biden took office, and that they have steadily increased government employment, basically to fake the job growth. Just like I've shown in all the shows this year, that all the data was fake, from jobs, production, GDP, everything is fake. And so the big issue is that the labor market is not really good. Now, if Trump and Musk want to do what they say they will be doing, meaning reduce the size of the government, which I totally approve personally, and reduce public employees, that means that basically the numbers of for unemployment is much bigger than it actually is. Now I think the number is, I probably have it here, it's probably about 4.2%, which increased recently. So that's kind of interesting. And I'm really interested about how the situation will develop next year on the economic side. The first implementation of reduction of employees would probably show, unemployment numbers shoot up dramatically, but I think that it's a necessary step for the situation to grow long term. So expect from the left side to communicate on the poor job that Trump is doing on the unemployment. By the way, but again, that's the political game that is played all the time. No surprise there. What else can we say? No, trade war and tariff, I always talked about it. The only, maybe I just can show you. Yes, you saw that the 10-year yield on Chinese bonds is dropping massively, which means that the economy is not doing so well. Actually, they have a lot of problems. I don't talk much about China, but it looks good, but it's actually not. They are a finance. It's heavily subsidized and helped just to keep it afloat. Actually, at this time. So that's interesting. Now we can maybe move on markets. So I mean, this was a good week. Actually, so the S&P overall was slightly more than about 1%, let's say. Most of the gains came from the growth sector, which grew 3%. I mean, it's not a sea of green like we've seen last week. You have a little bit more dispersion in the sector. The financial went down slightly. Energy went down, which is interesting. Maybe if I can remove the caption here. Yes, you have natural gas dropping. I know that a few of you are looking at natural gas. It's interesting because natural gas basically at this time has a lot of volatility, up, down. It's over the last 10 years, maybe it's kind of stuck around the 50th percentile. So not anything extremely positive or negative at this point. I would say it's just basically where it has been most of the time. So it still remains to be seen if it will change, break up or down. The thing is that it seems that energy is not so well oriented at this time. So let me put my amazing banner that this is not an investment advice. So this is where we are. So the VIX has been crushed again on equities, with equity as going up. Bonds are recovering slightly, but not something really dramatic. You've seen, I've shared the interview by Paul Tudor Jones earlier this week, saying that he's not confident about bonds long term because of the level of the US debt. That is probably something that cannot be fixed at this point. And I will try to answer that. Give me 5 minutes and I'll try to answer that. So last thing, the S&P is one of the best year, at least this over the last 10 years, maybe 10, 20 years, this century. I mean, it's been really an amazing run. It's what, 27, 30%, almost 30% this year. It's 40, more than 40% since the bottom in late 2023. But why is that? It's because a lot of money in the world is coming to the US. I think it's in really uncertain situations. You tend to go where the money is more safe, and if you have to think about one, the United States is still the safest place to invest at this time. So that's probably the reason why it's attracting a lot of money. If you see the share regions as percentage of the MSCI World Market Cap, obviously the US is going straight up. Like I said last week, people are leaving Europe, but this is something that has been going on at least since 2008 anyway. Japan is going down, so everything now is concentrated in the US. And in the US, it's mostly concentrated on growth, and within growth, it's concentrated within the max 7, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, whatever, but which makes actually the market much more fragile than it is, because you don't have much diversification anymore into a global index such as the S&P 500. So a word of caution here. So basically what I was saying, new highs, I think it's record new highs that we had over this year. VIX being crushed, I've mentioned that already. But something that I shared as well this week, that if you take an absolute reference for value, which is gold, if you express since 2000 the value of the S&P in gold, it's flat. So what you have here in the S&P is basically the increase of the debt. You see the US GDP is closely following the increase of debt, which, with an inflection point in 2008, obviously, which means now that we need more debt, even more debt, to create less growth, which is concerning. And so basically the S&P is following the debt at this point. It's not real growth, it's kind of fake growth. You may think that, at what point will this spread converge again? That's the most concerning point, and I don't have the answer. Just a little chart about oil. Again, oil just doesn't want to go up at this point. We are, on a major, very long-term bottom. And if we actually enter an official global world recession, this one might be going down. Just because, I like to look at oil as the main global economic activity reference, because that's what it is. Everything runs on oil. Everything you have, plastic, every kind of stuff, energy generation, everything in this world run on oil. So if the price is going down, this also means that the activity is going down, specifically in a world where we have some of the major oil producers at war or near war, such as Russia, Afghanistan, so the Middle East, Iran, the Middle East being under threat of, globalized conflict, but it didn't really help oil, keeping up. It's still, trying to hit the bottoms relentlessly, which means to me that the economy is not doing so well. So now, what do we have? One, gold. Gold since the election didn't move much. I believe that it's waiting to see where we're actually going with the new Trump policies, specifically in terms of debt management and deficit control. So that will be interesting. So I think that we'll probably stay in that situation until we get much clarity on this. I believe that the reason why gold dropped at this point, right after the election, is that the monetary policy would be less loose under Trump than it was with Biden, and was probably, in my opinion, the reaction. Now it's at a level where basically waiting point. And now we get to Bitcoin. Yeah, 100. I mean, it's a very important milestone. But is it actually? It's very psychological. Why did Bitcoin got to 100? I think I relate this to similar situation as gold, and the move from soft assets. The softer of all is, it's not even an asset, it's a currency, it's the US dollar, because you can print it at will. But you have the fact that the US is printing money a lot, and all the Western countries are doing the same thing. That means that the value of fiat currency is going to zero, as always, which means that, and the more they do this, the more people need to go to harder assets. And in terms of harder assets, you anything basically is harder than the US dollar or any fiat currency. So stocks is harder than fiat. That's exactly what happened in the Turkish scenario, where when you had a really high inflation episode in Turkey, the stock market went up as well. Why? Because it's a transfer from to harder asset. Something that the stock might not be. It's always what I say. Is that the value of a stock at one point, if you remove speculation, it is what it is. The value of one thing is what it is. The value of one apple is what it is. What makes it more expensive is the value of the money you pay with is lower, and that's why you have to give more to have the same thing, the thing that has the same value. So it's the same thing for the stocks, and you go to things that are harder and harder. So one of the hardest one is gold, obviously, but you can still mine it. The hardest of all is Bitcoin. And so I think there are two factors in this. First, you have Bitcoin being the hardest asset. You cannot print more than 21 million. It's as simple as that. And the next point, you have a wider adoption on Bitcoin thanks to corporate adoption. You have the ETFs is a major one reason for adoption. You have companies like MicroStrategy that are helping popularizing Bitcoin and increase and the speed of adoption of Bitcoin. This will probably, the current administration has been very positive for Bitcoin as well. And you see, basically, this is something that I've mentioned for quite some time. Maybe I can remove this, just we can see the date, because the Bitcoin actually took off. Oops, no, not this. Bitcoin actually took off right after the election. Right? Well, you cannot see my pointer, but the big move was right after the election of Donald Trump. Why? Because we are going from an administration that is anti-crypto to a new administration that is pro crypto, and obviously only that news is a positive for Bitcoins and obviously other cryptocurrencies. If you look like Ripple, I mean it's been crazy, so that definitely helped. And this is after that, there is some speculation. In every market, you have kind of people that are trading this or market maker that will try to hit the stops, and specifically around the round numbers, and only that was potentially a force of attraction for Bitcoin to reach 100,000. Now we've been around 100,000, for a couple of days. Now we reached it. We went down, on the South Korean coup. This is why you have this big empty candle kind of red, and then we came back to 100. I checked this morning, we were at 99, so we'll be hovering around this one. But I believe that it's a major psychological event that will bring more awareness to the general public about cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin. They will probably see that will help the public understand that Bitcoin is more widely accepted, and hopefully that will help more people getting interest in Bitcoin and support the price of it. That remains to be seen. Again, I need to say that it's not an investment advice. It's just an opinion. But why did it reach 100K? I think the Trump election was definitely a positive. In a couple of days, we went to 90 something. And then after that, the price just inched towards 100K, because probably people wanted to hit that number. Now I would say that it remains to be seen, but so Trump shared the name of a guy that he's thinking about to replace Gensler at the head of the SEC. This guy is a pro crypto. Yes, Paul Atkins. I know that here. And is thinking about this guy to replace Gensler. Paul Atkins is known to be is a lawyer known to be pro cryptocurrency. So again, we'll see when he takes office or when he makes his first public declarations. Probably he won't do, because he needs to be confirmed before getting the job. But once it's confirmed, I think his declarations will be very important for the evolution of the price of Bitcoin. But again, I think, to me, it's more, I would say it's more psychological. Obviously, this is something to celebrate, specifically when you've been, in the Bitcoin stuff in a long time, when you've seen $10,000, when you've seen $50,000, and then now you get to $100,000. I think that is something to see, because personally, if it's not a big issue to share it, but I'm a convinced libertarian, and I see this as an escape. Not really an escape, but because I don't think we can escape at the end of the day. You just can't escape the matrix. But anyway, not trying to be funny, I think that it's a real attempt that is getting real to have something that is independent, not controlled by a government, and that basically gives hope at this point. So I'm interested in seeing where Bitcoin does. I mean, the more Bitcoin grows, the more the world will be at peace, hopefully. Remove that kind of currency wars around the world. There will be huge forces to prevent that from happening. If you even Trump, talking about making Bitcoin part of the reserve behind the US dollar, there will be a point if that continues where governments will say, well, I mean, this Bitcoin starts to become a problem. The big thing is that I think that Putin said that a couple of days ago, is that nobody can control Bitcoin at this point. And that's why I believe and I hope the Bitcoin experiment will be successful. I'm not sure about that, to be honest. We are all living in a matrix of our own. We like to think that we are free, but nobody is free. We could have a discussion around that, but to me, freedom is, if I would have to give a definition, freedom is being comfortable within the walls you have chosen, within the walls of the jail you have chosen for yourself. That is freedom. And if you want an example of that, just take the last elections in the United States. People voting for the left are feeling free under a democratic leadership. And it's the total opposite. I mean, under Democrat leaderships, the right thinks that they are inside a tyranny, revert positions. People on the right side now believe that they will be free. But the left side think that they are entering a tyranny. So we are just never. I believe that freedom is an illusion. We have a lot of constraints. Just think, in the most cellular situation, which is your family, your wife, your kids. There are so many constraints. You just cannot do whatever you want at any time. It's not true. That's why I believe at this point, freedom is mostly an illusion, but it's a beautiful illusion to fight for. And that will be my last word for today. Thank you very much, guys. I was very happy to see you today. So we have comment about the matrix, about Bitcoin stuff. Again, I apologize for the beginning of the show. Sorry, Cliff. Sorry, Daniel. Sorry, Maddie. And all the other guys that could not hear, and all the guys that will view this as in delayed, either on LinkedIn or YouTube or on my channel. Really sorry about that. I think I just clicked the wrong button at some point. I just didn't notice. Thank you very much for being here. I hope you'll have a great weekend. Enjoy your time, and my friend, be as free as one